Dustin Miller, God bless you, sir. You're back.
I'm back.
You're back. You are the director of lands, the Department of Lands for Idaho, yes?
Yep. I still am.
Still am.
Yeah.
Did I say were?
You are.
You are.
You said you are still.
And
right.
You are still. You still am.
Yeah. Well,
this is not SAT class.
Yeah.
Cut. Let's do this. I have to tell you, man, I went to Thousand Springs yesterday. Oh my God. First off, we have dinosaur fossils in Idaho, which I had no idea about. The dinosaur fossil center right next to Hagerman also has this epic campground that's right next to it that's just opening up. There's a river that wraps around it so you can go floating. After that, we actually went to the Thousand Springs area where you can see all the water like weeping out of the hillside. There's Ritter Island that has 3 different houses that you can rent. One sleeps 10 that's literally on the fresh water coming out of the mountainside, right, down into the Snake River. Like, it was unbelievable. Like, this was the sickest place I'd ever been. And then we went to what was it, like Box Gorge. That was somebody said it was like the Caribbean of Idaho. It's like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, all an hour and a half away from Boise. Yeah. And then on the way back, we stopped by the Stampede Burger joint and got the Maverick Burger, which was in, not Hobby. It was in, damn it, man. I can't remember the town. Where is that?
Is that in Bliss? Not Bliss.
It's like an H or a C
Hagerman.
or... No.
Oh.
It's
I know what you're talking about,
not Hogan, not Hagerman. Hang on, I gotta.
You gotta find it now
because it was so good. Like the burger we had was so legit. I couldn't believe it. I was like, Stampede Burger. There we go. Stampede Burger is in. Come on, what is this? Stampede Burger in. Oh God damn it, Gooding.
It's good. Oh, you went to Gooding.
Yeah, so on the way back, we hit Stampede Burger in Gooding, got the Maverick Burger, which was legit, like double stack, sweet peppers, the best sauce ever. All of this is like part of our state park system. That's right here. I knew nothing about it. Like the dinosaur visitor center was so legit. Like they have national park people and state park people. Man,
it's a hidden gem that just outside of Boise, right? There's so many of those places. I think the Parks Department does a nice job on maintaining those places, attracting people there.
Right.
And, I think a lot of people moving here don't realize just in this valley, what do we have? I mean, maybe 500,000 people. I don't know what the entire population, but it's the urban metropolis here, the major urban metropolis here in Idaho. But you don't have to go that far away to get out into that open space and see some really cool things that make Idaho what it is, right? We're pretty blessed to have that.
Yeah, it blew me away. Yeah. And I'm telling you right now, as embarrassing as this, I did not know that kind of stuff was in the state of Idaho. I did not. Like, I had seen a little bit about river systems and like how, we got a lot of rivers, but having access to this stuff literally an hour and a half away, that is just oppressively gorgeous, and it's preserved, it's well kept, it's maintained, and there's so much pride that went into it. Like I took a picture of this stamp outside one of the facilities at the campsite, and it was this Idaho State stamp in the concrete, and I was like, dude, somebody worked really hard to make sure that got put in there.
Right.
In fact, like before I was going to take the picture, there was a weed, and I was like, started pulling the weeds. I'm like, this is really important that we preserve this stuff, and I actually got really worried on the way home, because I was with this big crew from the Department of, we're doing this campaign. I think we're going to call it Parked and Wrecked, the Parked and Wrecked campaign. But I was with a big crew of those people, and I was like, man, if we don't tell people, if we don't share this with people, then we're going to have a generation of Idahoans that grow up not knowing anything about these state parks and these state gems, and they will not be there to defend them when we need it. Right? Like, we have to tell people this stuff. And I think there was a time when people really engaged on, website style communication. It's like, oh, go to the Parks and Rec website and like they'll have a listed. It's like, yeah, I think that's important and that's great, but man, we have to showcase it where the people are. And that's on social media, man. Like, we got to put that stuff out.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And you look at the amount of people moving here, and they need places to go. They need places to visit and recreate. Right. And, you got to have the staff to maintain those facilities and those parks. And again, I think Director Buxton does a nice job doing that. I know they got some money for some deferred maintenance at parks a couple budget cycles ago.
Yeah.
To kind of keep working towards that and providing for this growing population in Idaho.
Man, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. You and I connected earlier in the year about a number of different things with the Department of Land. But as of late, there has been a lot of talk about forestry, forest management, harvesting. I actually had Brad LaPlante in recently, and he's one of the National, essentially, Forest Service Union guys.
Yeah.
Really great conversation with him. But there is a lot of concern around what this presidential administration is doing, how that's affecting Idaho. I think a lot of people are very concerned. They're like, this is going to be terrible. All these horrible things are happening. And every time I talk to somebody, like, it's not terrible. Right. Like, this is not that bad. So you very kindly came in, help me understand what's going on with the state government and how that relates to the national emphasis on harvesting and better management of our forests.
Right. You know, with any administration that comes in, federal administration, right? You know, two different opposing parties. You had the Biden administration that was going one direction, and the Trump administration going a different direction, right? And so that train is moving the other direction. It came to a screeching halt, and now it's in overdrive, going the other direction. The Trump administration has their priorities on, you know, across the board, a multitude of things, including land management and forest management. The Biden administration came up with this wildfire crisis strategy.
Okay,
right?
And I was going to ask you this.
They understand.
What was it?
You know, there's an understanding that our national forests are in a state of decline. Right? We're actually in Idaho. You know, you think about a healthy forest being a carbon sink. Well, we're actually a carbon emitter on our Forest Service lands now because, you know, they're unhealthy. They're not releasing the oxygen. They're not absorbing the carbon that a healthy forest would. And so there is a crisis here in Idaho, a forest health crisis. 6 million acres in Idaho are considered to be severely at risk for insect and disease infestations and consequently catastrophic wildfire. And so the Biden administration said, yeah, we got this wildfire crisis strategy. Okay, that's great. They're drawing lines on a map. But what did they do with that? Not much. What the Trump administration is doing now is actually treating this like a wildfire crisis and trying to do something about it. And so the president had his executive order on forest management that was coupled with Secretary Rollins, USDA Secretary Rollins' executive order or secretarial order on wildfire and how to implement that. And there's further mechanisms within the USDA and the Forest Service and how they're going to get this done, improve forest health conditions. And so a lot of that...
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, so a couple quick things. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, I know you're on a roll here. I just don't want to...
No, that's all right.
So in general, yeah, we consider carbon requisition within natural systems because obviously part of the carbon cycle is plants ingesting carbon, emitting oxygen. Mm-hmm. And what you're saying is at this point, our forests are in such a state of disrepair, either overgrowth, mismanagement, not harvesting correctly. As it's been explained to me, they grow very intensely and very close together, which creates a far more disease and health problems within that forest because they're competing for resources like nutrients, like water. And so none of the trees or the systems in there is actually doing well. Right. They might be existing, but they're not doing well. That's where you get like problems with bark beetles and things of that nature, which then obviously kill off wide swaths of areas. Yeah. So because of that, we're not functioning even close to properly with just the basic environmental mechanisms of like, okay, you take in carbon dioxide, you emit oxygen. It's like, no, we're not even doing that sufficiently. That's the level of disease and disrepair that our forests are in.
Right. Exactly, Matt. And you look at, you know, the like lodgepole pine, for example. Lodgepole pine's got like a 120-year lifespan, right? Okay. But on federal lands, you're seeing a lot of these even age class lodgepole pine forests dying off and starting to decline, right? On endowment lands, we're very mindful of those conditions. And so when we start to think that whatever tree species it may be, I know I mentioned lodgepole pine, but say it's Doug fir or whatever, when it's reaching that optimum growth and it's sort of, you let it stay there on the stump much longer, it's eventually going to start declining. falling apart, you're losing value, and then ultimately you're going to have a huge fire risk. And when they do start declining, they're not absorbing as much carbon as they used to, and they're going to continue on that state of decline. So
you want to hit them right.
What our foresters do is they're mindful of that, and it's basically tree farming is what it is.
Yeah.
And so you get in there, you get a contractor to get in there and remove the understory. Maybe it's the less desirable trees, or maybe they could be desirable, but they're in the wrong location. You've got more mature growth that you want to make sure thrives, and so you're taking out that understory, allowing those healthier trees to grow and mature and to get to that state where you do want to cut them. And you're minimizing that fire risk, you're minimizing that insect and disease infestation risk, and you're managing a healthy forest. That's what we do on state endowment trust lands. On the federal side, I've got a lot of friends in the federal government, and they want to do good things on the land, but their hands have been tied because of the bureaucracy of red tape, of regulations, and litigation that ties up land management projects and timber sales in the courts for years. And then also ultimately, that forest keeps declining. You get the bugs in there, and you have a catastrophic fire risk on your hands. And you see what's happening around us, right? California, Oregon. A lot of these areas in those states, their forests are in a state of decline. They've been tied up in litigation, and you're seeing mega fires. And then you have the growth, right? You have more people in those states. You've got the expanding wildland-urban interface. What we're trying to do, to circle back to what the Trump administration is looking at, is creating healthier forests, and a lot of that focuses in on removing some of that timber, right? And putting up those timber sales, meeting those Forest Service sale plan targets, because most of the forests in Idaho are not meeting those sale plan targets. And they might increase some of those targets. I know that's in the works right now in the planning efforts with the Forest Service.
Can you explain the sale plan targets?
Yeah, every national forest has a allowable sale quantity, I think is what it is.
So that's how much you can
That's how much.
harvest.
That's their volume targets,
Okay,
right?
great.
Most forests are not meeting that, right?
And why is that?
The red tape, the bureaucracy, personnel, the Forest Service. They're public lands, right? And they're multiple use lands. And so you're going to have a whole slew of ologists, not just foresters.
Slew of ologists?
You're going to have hydrologists. You're going to have fisheries biologists.
Zoologists.
You're going to have wildlife biologists. And so their expertise in forestry and forest management has declined over the last several decades, right? So I think they're lacking in a lot of the expertise, but also just the bureaucracy and the red tape that those folks have had to deal with, right? I know a lot of folks within the Forest Service want to do more on the lands, but they, again, because of all those different things and litigation, they've not been able to. The administration coming in wants to do more. They recognize the fire risk. They also recognize the fact that we import a lot of lumber from Canada because we're not producing it here, and we have the ability to produce all of what our country needs here from our national forests, including our industrial timberlands, private lands, and endowment lands. In Idaho, endowment lands we have about a third of the market, maybe a little bit more of that. So we're providing 30 to 35% of the volume for the industry. That's huge. Yeah. Forest Service, I think, is about 20%, and the remaining coming from. Well, actually, let me step back. We're about 30%. The industrial side is about 50%. Okay, that's kind of in a state declining a little bit too, and then the balance there, coming from the federal land. So
gotcha. So and just to be really clear on this, so we have a harvesting target, right? A sales target, and that's established at the federal level. They're like, hey, this is how much. This is your max sales that you can take out, and it'd be good to hit these max sales for a number of reasons, right? Not the least of which is funding to additional tangential projects and management of lands. But so we have this federally established target, but then we also have things like equal access to justice, right? So acts that provided an incentivization program from different environmental groups and different organizations to stop the harvesting of certain like timber, right? So you have you have this federally established target, and then you have outside agencies that continue to, and again, let's say their intentions are good. They're like, hey, we want to preserve the environment or whatever. It's like, fine. But that's the red tape you're talking about, which is like, okay, now we have this target that the federal government says, yeah, go after that and get that. That's the appropriate target. But then it becomes so difficult to actually engage in this because we have alternate groups that are hampering it and putting roadblocks in the way, that you either don't have the funding at the end of the day to do it, or it just takes too long and you're constantly following behind. So it's like you can't actually realize what the plan was that the federal government set out. So that's when you're saying the Trump administration is really hoping and emphasizing, like, look, get after your sales target for a number of reasons, not the least of which is funding and fire management.
Yeah. You're spot on there, Matt.
Got it.
So here's an example. You mentioned, some of these federal statutes, Equal Access to Justice Act, litigation over forest health projects, logging. Doug fir tussock moth. Gosh, was this about 5 or 6 years ago? We had a tussock moth outbreak here in Southwest Idaho. So we had the Packer John State Forest, which is, north of Banks and west of Garden Valley. So big state piece of ground there. And we had an outbreak there. And the best thing you can do to contain that is take down those dead and dying trees, right? Get rid of those trees.
Because the moss is like parasitic or something. Okay, great.
Absolutely. So harvest those trees and then, prep the site. And there's a lot that goes into prepping the site. Sure. Prescribed burning, pile burning, broadcast burning, noxious weed abatement, those types of things. And you plant a more desirable tree species. And so we did that. Now, tussock moth doesn't know jurisdictional boundaries, right? And so across the way on the Boise National Forest, same thing, sage hen reservoir, disease and dying trees because of the outbreak. We went in and we aggressively harvested those dead and dying trees, and we took care of the problem. There was a market for the logs, and we came back and replanted that site. And it's ultimately going to be a beautiful forest. It's going to be a productive forest again, and we'll be able to harvest and generate that revenue for the endowment beneficiaries. On the other side, on federal land, Boise National Forest, they weren't able to be as nimble as us because of the bureaucracy and the red tape and having their hands tied. And that project got tied up in litigation. I think a big factor there was Section 7 consultation over bull trout, right? So they did some harvesting in there. They attempted, but they couldn't get it done. Some of that ground to the north that was infested with tussock moth and had the dead and dying trees burned up in the lava fire. And so the governor likes to use that as an example. He said, look, we were able to get in there quickly and deal with this problem, and we didn't have the catastrophe on our forests like the Forest Service did across the way. Again, I can't blame the Forest Service. I mean, that was the hand that they were dealt because of how the system has been set up. And so, yeah, I mean, that was a massive catastrophic burn, that lava fire, and burned into another fire, the Boulder Fire just south of Cascade. So the governor, again, he likes to, use that as an example, saying this is why active management is critical. And so the Trump administration wants to do more. And what the governor signed last week up in Coeur d'Alene was his own governor's executive order that directs the Department of Lands to work closely with the Trump administration and the Forest Service to do more, to utilize some of our authorities and our processes to expedite the treatments of those Forest Service lands. I mentioned that 6 million acres designated under the Healthy Forest Restoration Act that are severely at risk of catastrophic fire, and utilizing some of our planning work to get more work done on Forest Service land. So the Good Neighbor Authority program, we've talked about that before.
And just to give a quick background on that.
Yeah, so that was a program that was established in 2015. It came through the Farm Bill. And the year after, the Idaho legislature passed a concurrent resolution that directed the Department of Lands to engage with the Forest Service under agreements to expedite the pace and scale of restoration work on National Forest System lands. Part of that is logging. So we're utilizing our foresters, our expertise, and our streamlined contracting procedures to establish more timber sales on federal lands. And you're establishing those sales, you're administering those sales from start to finish. And that's good for the industry. I said, the industry needs the wood. We want to keep these mills going in Idaho. We want to keep a steady flow of fiber to these mills. I don't want to lose any more mills in the state. And so the federal lands are going to continue to play a key role in that industry and keeping that industry vibrant long into the future. And so timber sales are not only good for, like I said, the industry, but that money then is used to pay for the restoration work. When I talk about restoration work, I'm talking about all the things we're going to do on the ground that the American public can rally behind. So fish and wildlife habitat restoration work, working very closely with our partners at Fish and Game to get some of that work done. Road and trail improvements, making sure roads aren't sloughing off into fish-bearing streams and causing problems there, providing the recreational access to with the trail systems for the American people, and replanting that forest and making it a healthy forest again. The prescribed burning is another piece of that. So it's a really neat program because the timber sales are funding the restoration work that everybody can rally behind and support. And you're making these areas more resistant and resilient to catastrophic wildfire and healthier. Especially as we're looking at the fire risk to communities and this expanding wild and urban interface, I want to make sure that we are very, very diligent about working in those areas to protect our communities from catastrophic wildfire.
Man, can I get an amen?
Yeah.
It's like, good Lord. That people have been talking to me about the nature of replanting, creating a healthier forest by, again, talking about taking out invasive species or taking out saplings that are too close by. But also when you're talking about replanting better trees, there are different species of trees that obviously produce different products at the end of their lifespan, but they also require different resources and during their life. So if you have somebody mentioned like an aspen or something, different types of tree that require different precipitation.
Right.
It's like, look, if you have a tree that requires 20 to 25 inches of water per year, and you have that in an area that only gets 8 to 12, the tree may grow, but it's going to grow in not its full glory. It's going to compete for its life with every drop of water from everything around it. And it's going to be far more disease prone. And if you have a lot of those trees coming through, the better option would be to harvest those trees when is appropriate and then replant with the better trees, clear out everything beneath it, do whatever you have to do. But that's part of a longer term forest management process. That's like, look, maybe not even in our lifetime, but in 50 years, that forest is going to be far healthier, right? Like our grandchildren will see a forest and get the benefit of these things, which is the time frame you have to deal with when you're dealing with growing trees. Like that's one of the big things. Like, yeah, look, it's going to take forever, but this is like you're just a steward of it for a very brief period of time. And we are right now reaping what was sowed 50, 60, 70 years ago, right? Either through inappropriate management or no management, or just, like there are plenty of classic examples of people planting trees that they thought would be fine and thrive that weren't, like the eucalyptus trees in Northern California. It's like, they're not the right hardwood and they spontaneously combust. Yeah, this is not good. You should have left the redwoods, man.
They should have talked to the experts before planting.
Oh my God. There was some dude who just like brought over the Australian, like some Australian eucalyptus. He's like, this is going to be great. We're going to have like a hardwood factory here. And there's like, oh, it's the wrong one. But everything was already planted and like they just took down all the 300-year-old, redwood trees that were bigger than this house.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. It's wild.
So that's essentially a big piece of this is, look, we got to deal with the hand we are dealt right now. We have to be able to cut through more of the red tape that we're experiencing right now. When the federal government is hampered, but we're dealing with something on a national forest within the state of Idaho, we have to have better cooperation and partnership with the federal government to engage in good neighbor authority. It's like, listen, if you don't take care of this, it's going to be a problem for everybody. So let us streamline this and get in there. And then on the flip side of it is, what's the appropriate management and follow-up to make sure we have sustainable timber harvest, we have healthier forests, we have a thriving industry that doesn't suffer from boom and bust, harvesting and then drought of essentially supply.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think just people just need to understand. I mean, I know this administration is going 100 miles an hour in a different direction than the Biden administration was going. But I think in a lot of ways, from a land management standpoint, this can be a good thing to really leverage the state's expertise. And because the Trump administration wants to utilize our assistance and our expertise in improving the condition of our public lands. And so on the forestry side, I think we've got that dialed pretty good. It's how quickly do you scale up, and what are really going to be the targets in the next few years. And we're working on that right now. We're having those conversations, but we're excited to be a part of that because I think we can make a difference that really matters. And really the focus is addressing this catastrophic wildfire risk in Idaho. And through some of these authorities that we operate under, the GNA and the Shared Stewardship Initiative, which is even more cross-boundary work, working in the wild and urban interface, working with landowners and homeowners to make their that landscape more resistant and resilient to catastrophic fire. It's huge, and it's got to be an all hands on deck thing, because it's in that wild and urban interface that's where I have to send our wildland firefighters. A lot of those timbered acres, those private timbered acres, the Department of Lands has primary fire protection responsibility, and it is a very dangerous fuel type to send firefighters into. So I really want to impress upon people to be fire-wise and make your homes more resistant to catastrophic fire, create that defensible space, and give my firefighters a good place to engage fire in. Because if not, and we start losing homes, we walk away. We're not trained in structure protection. We're wildland. That's why we rely so heavily on our fire service organizations, and that relationship with the Idaho Fire Chiefs Association and our fire service organizations is critical. It's more critical than ever. We talked about the last time I was on, we talked about the Valley Fire that lit off here early October. Had it not been for that multi-agency response, we probably would have lost homes. Boise Fire did a damn good job on that fire for us, protecting those homes. We were involved, Forest Service, BLM, and you saw the air show, right? It was an impressive air show. Having the tanker base here at NIFC, it was huge. And then we had the water scoopers that were dipping off Lucky Peak. And so that was huge. That was an eye-opener for the people in the Treasure Valley. And that was early October. Fire season in Idaho, at least what we've seen in the areas we protect, we're about 30 days longer. Our fire season about 30 days longer than what it was 15 years ago. So longer fire season, more extreme fire behavior. But this kind of parlays into our wildland fire program modernization efforts, right? And for years we've been doing that. We've got a fire strategic plan that is really going to set us up for the future and guiding our developments and our modernization and budget requests moving forward. And the legislature, they've been good to us over the years, funding certain elements. And you and I talked before. We tried like hell to get the $100 million into the suppression account. That's what the governor, that was his request through our budget. $60 million supplemental for the current fiscal year, and then $40 million ongoing. A lot of different competing interests. I mean, tax relief, right? That was huge. That's impactful for Idahoans. It's a big deal. But only $40 million one time was provided to us for the suppression account, which, we've got the ability to put fire on a credit card, but just given the trend of more acres burned, more extreme fire behavior, longer seasons, more expensive fire seasons, I knock on wood, but I worry about us blowing through that pretty quickly. And so
and look, everybody likes credit cards as long as you're like, yeah, but I'm gonna make more money next month. Yeah. And it's like, I'll be fine. I'll be able to pay it off. The thing that was expressed to me from some people with regard to that plan is, yeah, look, we can put it on the credit card. That's totally fine. We'll pay in the rears. Okay, that's totally fine. But what happens if we have a major contraction in our budget? Like, what happens if we don't have the revenue and all of a sudden paying it off with a credit card actually comes into conflict with other needs that we have? That's a really big concern for a lot of people. So again, like you're not alone in saying, hey, look, man, it's like, would probably be better. People were saying would definitely be better to just account for this ahead of time, to have this piggy bank lined up, not that's going into anybody's pocket, but it's just like, we know. I had Dean Cameron on, director of insurance, and he Man, that conversation was like a little sobering because he was, you know, obviously he's fighting tooth and nail to make sure we maintain a robust and healthy insurance market in the state of Idaho for Idaho. And so we don't see, you know, horrendous insurance cancellation issues like, you know, you see in other states. And he just said, look, it's only going to get worse.
Right.
It's going to get worse. We know it's going to get worse. And we are like advocating like crazy for Idahoans to actively take a role in making their properties fire safe. You have insurance benefits to that. And he was very quick to say, if anybody has problems with their insurance companies, either not paying out or getting canceled, call the Department of Insurance. That was great. But these are real problems. Like these are real issues that people need to pay attention to. And like, yeah, we can work on the insurance side, but man, wouldn't it be better if we were able to manage so we didn't have to rely on insurance? Like, wouldn't it be great if we had a robust insurance market here and they didn't have to pay out because Idaho was doing such a good job of maintaining their lands?
Yeah. Yeah. I would wholeheartedly agree with that. And
our rates would go down.
Yeah. The rates
That'd be great.
Down. They had so I know, Director Cameron is working on legislation to kind of create that insurer of last resort, that insurance pool.
Yes.
California had that, has that, but it's bankrupt now because of the LA fires. And so there's nothing left in that pot of money to pay out for those losses to homeowners. It's a scary thing. That's why you're absolutely right, Matt. It's incumbent upon homeowners in this state to take those precautions and create that defensible space and protect their property. We can help with that. Shared stewardship program, grant opportunities. You know, the counties are helping out too with a lot of that fire mitigation work with private landowners. It's critical that we keep going because, you know, Idaho's been discovered, more than 2 million people here now, and everybody wants their little piece of heaven, right? You see some of these bigger forest landowners, some of these timberland, industrial timberland outfits chunking off, you know, parcels and ranchettes. And again, you're expanding that wild and urban interface. You're creating these situations where a lot of risk is being placed on the backs of our firefighters, of the local fire service organizations, because now you're not just fighting a forest fire, you're fighting it within the wild and urban interface. And like I said earlier, there's a lot of risk, there's a lot of unknowns, you know, all kinds of flammable materials. You got propane tanks, you've got, you know, people with ammunition sheds, right? Hey, this is Idaho, right? And
and God
what
bless
if those
it.
things start blowing up?
Yeah, right. Like,
right?
Great. Have like, and again, like have private land, right? Have your ammunition shed.
Absolutely.
Have all of this stuff, man. But at the end of the day, this is going to be all of our problems if the state goes up in flames, right? And like, you're going to have real problems around your property if you're living in the middle of, you know, your private ranchette and you haven't managed it properly and you haven't allowed other people to manage it.
Right. And that's, you know, that's why it's critical that we stay, you know, vigilant here, continuing to work with the public, private landowners on creating that defensible space, working to eliminate those fuels on private land. And then, you know, the buffer around that on federal lands, right? You're not going to treat every acre, and nor should you, right? They're federal lands, and not every acre is created equally and has the same kind of value. Sure. But I think with our planning efforts through our forest action plan, and we've got, you know, all kinds of mapping on forest health and fire risk, and overlaying that with the Healthy Forest Restoration Act designations, that 6 million acres of federal land that's at risk of catastrophic wildfire, and then utilizing a lot of our authorities and abilities through a good neighbor authority and shared stewardship, I think we can do a lot of good on the ground to help protect Idahoans from this growing threat of catastrophic wildfire. And I really appreciate the governor staying laser focused on this and leading the charge. The land board has been there. The land board has been very focused on our budget requests and wanting the same thing: healthier forests, and you know, communities that are more protected from wildfire.
When you, and again, I know today's a working day. Just one last thought. When you start talking about 6 million acres, when you're talking about the vastness of the issue, the urban interfaces, you know, diseases, I'm just a dude in a garage with a microphone. I would love to go out and see that stuff. And, you know, I was like, let's go. I would love to go out and I don't want to put anybody's operation at risk. Obviously, he's like walking this idiot through the forest. There's like trees falling and stuff. But like, I think that's really, I'd love to go out and see it. And I'd love to, you know, maybe even do shows out there and talk to people out there, because in the absence of that, we can talk about it. And I believe every single thing you're saying, but in the absence of standing in a tree stand and realizing like, oh, this is the problem. You're like, see all these trees marked with an X? All of these trees are diseased and need to come down. And like, this is why. And like, this is, it's like, people need to understand that. Like, this is our state. And we need to be better connected to it and understand what the departments are doing, lest we not value them, right? Like, which is a bad thing, or we just not be engaged at all. So like, I don't know if that's possible, but I'm in.
Oh, yeah, Matt, let's do it. Let's transport the studio, and including Godzilla behind you. Maybe without the flames, though. We were going to go in the woods to keep the flames off him. But
what if we got a little stand for him?
We could do that.
I think they're like, what's on that tree back there?
I think that would be great. And we could pull in some other people.
Yes.
You know, there's a lot of other folks in this business, from the forest health side of things, foresters, folks in the logging community, you know, folks in the fire community. I think would be good for you to have some conversations with.
Do you have a helicopter? Could we fly a helicopter over it?
Well,
do you have a plane like a Cessna?
We have aircraft, but I think we're probably gonna have to stay on the ground. But
okay, maybe next time. I'm trying to get to go up in the cloud seeding
but we do have drones, so we could do some. We do a lot of cool things with drones. I mean, we would have to have another show, but our LiDAR work kind of really plays into our forest inventory, forest health work, and then we have infrared cameras that we hang on these drones and fly them at night over wildfires, just so we know where the hot spots are and the places where we can direct our firefighters to during mop-up operations to make sure they're cooling down those hot spots. And you're spending less time then generally on doing mop-up, because you know where those hot spots are.
You don't have to guess.
And then you can have your firefighters refreshed for the next initial attack. So
dude, it's
wild. Really cool stuff.
Yeah.
But if we can get out there in the woods, there's a lot of different places not too far away, Matt, that we could do some really neat things with this show.
I'm in it. And what I was telling somebody towards the end of the session, because I was doing like, you know, 3 to 6 or 7 shows a day. And they're like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do when this is over? And you know, obviously that like transition out of the political discussions, right? Because then we enter more into, you know, ag seasons and local elections, things like that. But more than anything, I was like, I'm really excited because I've been talking to all of these people about stuff out there, like out there in the world that I have not experienced because I'm in like a basement, you know, doing the show. But it's going to allow me more time to do things like this, where it's like we take time and go places and we're able to capture on locations. Like, this is what it looks like here. I'm like, this is part of the 6 million acres we're trying to manage. And this is the enormity of the task, because it's like, when you say 6 million acres, it's like my head, like I just kind of short for a second. It's like, I don't know how to compute that. It doesn't make sense to me. That's 1,000 by 1,000
it's
times 6. Like I can't, like, that's a lot of land. And recognizing it's like, trees are growing all day, every day, man. Little water, little sun, and boom, forests are growing, and they have to be managed. And again, they got a way of managing themselves, but it's not for the best interest of, humans.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen, man. Thank you for coming in. Is there anything you'd like to say here at the end?
I think we're good.
We're good.
I appreciate the dialogue, and I appreciate, helping us get this message out, right? There's a lot of misconceptions out there, and what we're trying to do here really is work with our partners, the landowner, the U.S. government, the Forest Service, to improve the condition of Forest Service lands. It's been a great partnership, and I really look forward to doing more together.
Yeah. Yeah. So. And like one of the best things you said is, it's like, listen, the federal government, this administration is not out to kill all of the forests in America. And it's certainly not to kill all the forests in Idaho. They're working with you guys to help you reach your targets. Right. That's so, and there are a lot of people saying a lot of different things, and it's very hard to flush out, but hearing it directly from the horse's mouth, you're the director of lands. You're like, look, I'm not like, we're going in a positive direction where we're going to be able to hit more of our targets, which will ultimately be better for Idaho.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
God
Great
bless it,
thing.
man. Yeah.
All right.
Great. Thank you for coming in, sir. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
Sounds good. Thanks.